My name's John Fosco. I was born November 12th, 1980, into an Italian-American household in Chicago, Illinois. It was an abusive household. I witnessed severe abuse to my mother, to my brother, to myself. I grew up in this environment with a lot of trauma. This led me down a dark path, down a path of addiction that eventually led to an overdose. I remember consciously thinking, as I was choking on my vomit, that it was over because my body was in a state of paralysis and I couldn't move. And I thought I was dead. I woke up on the floor with a split lip, and I don't know how I got there to this day. And I believe that day is kind of when my life began, and that's why I'm here today.
Maurice Claret from Youngstown, Ohio. Grew up in the inner city, like traditionally every inner city in America. Grew up around a bunch of violence, murders, robberies, so on and so forth. During my childhood, I found football, like a lot of people know. Eventually became the best high school football player in the nation. Transitioned from there and went as an 18-year-old kid to go to Ohio State, and I won a national championship, started on the team, won that deal. That was right around the time that, LeBron's a year younger than me, so we grew up all in the same area. He's, him being the best basketball player in the area, me being the best football player in the area. Got a little ahead of myself. Eventually got kicked out of school. When I get kicked out of school, I fell into a deep, dark depression, right? I'm pretty sure if you've been here, if you're a fan of the show, everybody knows what depression feels like, right? From there, I got to drinking and drugging a lot too much. I ended up basically going to California to try to get away from my issues and believing that just escaping the environment would help me to get better, but the same behavior kind of carried on from there. I was out of football for about a couple years. I eventually got drafted to the Denver Broncos in the 3rd round. The same behavior that I basically had established in Denver had carried over to that I'd done in California. It went over to the Denver Broncos. From there, they released me from the team. And eventually what happened was that I went back to the streets and got back to selling drugs and robbing people. And eventually what happened was that I got caught, which was a very notable incident that happened on ESPN. I was riding, going to murder the people who I basically had robbed. I had basically had a robbery case prior to me getting my second case, but I was right around the corner getting ready to try to kill the people who were basically involved in the first case. And eventually the people came and arrested me, and it was the best thing that kind of happened to me. And from there, I went to prison, or I was sentenced to prison, and I can't wait to tell you the rest, but that's why I'm here.
Corey Gregory, grew up in Appalachia, Ohio. Just grew up watching the financial struggle of my parents, day in and day out, making bad financial decisions. My dad playing the lottery, thinking that's the way out. Watching the Pick 4, the Super Lotto, and getting hyped up as a kid, thinking that was something that was going to change our situation. I think that after continually just bad decisions over time, watching my mom and him separate because of that deterioration of the relationship from those, type of decisions, watching my mom grind as a waitress to pay this rent on this trailer that was $150 a month rent, and understanding just that I just didn't want that for myself anymore, and that I could take control of it and do something completely different that could change my family forever. That's why I'm here. But what we didn't tell you, welcome to Business and Biceps, and now we're going to go through some of our credentials to see how we picked our asses up through business. Let's go.
Come on now. This is not a sad story.
Hell no. All right, so appreciate you guys coming out. Nashville.
Yeah.
What we want to do is try to go through a little bit of each story on how we got here. You guys heard, what changed our lives, but what we've accomplished, how we got here, and then we're going to share some ways that you guys can, ascend to the same type of thing. Johnny Fosco, You're first, my brother.
Yeah, so I guess...
Don't be humble either.
Where I left off is that I truly do believe my life began once I got sober. And I always had a knack for making money. When I grew up, I always had money in my pocket, whether it was playing cards or whatever I was doing. That was my natural gift. So I started a business about 3 weeks after I got sober, after I had overdosed, and built that business up. It was a large retailer of MMA goods. I ended up becoming an agent in the UFC space, and I built a marketing agency that I sold. I built another marketing agency that worked with large clients like Sony, Microsoft, Muscle Farm. That's how I met Corey and all their blue chip sponsors. I ended up selling that. So long story short, I'm addicted to business. I've sold 5 businesses at the age of 31, I think, is when I officially made my first million. And all I can credit this to, and the journey is still going, is all those trials and tribulations that I think people look at as a curse. And I looked at it as a curse, but it's beautiful, man, because if I didn't go through that stuff, there'd be no way I'd have any kind of success. And I'm not a smart guy. I didn't go to school. You know, I just learned how to...
You didn't go to school to be a sports agent?
No, man, just pick my ass up. So, listen, you guys know Maurice Clarett. The guy won a national championship. He's the best college running back I've ever seen. You know, and people look at his accolades physically, but to go through what he went through, to go to prison, to get out of prison, to not blame people, not point the finger at other people, and to find a way to build up a business, a multi-million-dollar business, to treat people with mental health issues, with the issues that he went through, makes me proud to be his partner. So, Mo, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Yeah, my story is similar but different. I first started teaching myself in prison about business. I knew that I knew I couldn't get out of prison and basically play football anymore. I knew that I would basically be too old. So during my time of incarceration, I used to ask myself, what is it that I can do to basically pick myself up and go out here and have a successful life? And as silly as it sounds, before I went to prison, I used to sell drugs, right? And so I always tell people in its inception, drug dealing is very entrepreneurial, right? It's not popular to say, but you're still basically transacting goods. You're buying something as cheap as you can buy it. You sell it to somebody. The wrong means to basically deliver something to somebody, but nonetheless, that was it. And I was attracted to that process. And so in prison, excuse me, this is where I basically got my formal or informal education behind entrepreneurship, business, and I would basically just get my hands on everything I could possibly get them on and read and read and read and read and read. And the more I began to understand and articulate myself, I just found out that same ambition that I had as an athlete, that same thing basically followed me to other spaces and places in life. And eventually when I got out of prison, I started from ground zero. I started out selling books, thanks to Corey. There was a tremendous amount of stuff that I had written in prison that was of value, and I was able to package it up. And
I said, take that stuff down online.
Yeah.
Let's put it in a book.
Yeah, I was able to package it up and eventually sell it, humbling myself, starting off selling T-shirts to fans and different, motivational sayings or things that I felt like mimicked my life, and training people and running youth camps. And eventually, I was able to get on the road and do some speaking engagements. And I've always been very cheap. If you know me, I'm cheap. I don't spend any money. If you listen to the podcast, I always talk about I don't spend any money at all. I think I invest money. I don't spend it, right? And so I went from there, and I saved money for about like a year after speaking, and I had enough money to then invest in transportation. And then I bought one truck, and then one truck or van turned into about 12. And pairing the transportation industry with packaging, I'd done in 2015, between transportation and packaging, I'd done over $1 million in business. I didn't make as much money on packaging, but nonetheless, I did over $1 million in business. And then eventually I got into what I'm into now. I run mental health and drug and alcohol recovery centers, and I also have real estate. But I ended up getting into those industries and businesses because it was something I was a lot more passionate about. It's something that connected through my life, but there was a lot. And I feel very uncomfortable talking about myself sometimes, right? Football, I'll brag, but not anything else, right? But that was kind of like my story, and there's a lot that I think that you can learn. We have about 150 or 60 people on staff, and I just think that I can give people real information from experience, and hopefully that we can do that. And I'll transition to Corey, and Corey can kind of tell you his success. But the success was kind of to validate, us giving information. It's not like just a bunch of people talking. You know what I'm saying? And that's the hopes to transfer that this evening.
Yeah, I'm going to speak on these two guys real quick, though. I like to do this because a lot of times they don't share. I see the hoodies in the crowd, too. I like it. When I was working with the UFC and Johnny, if you wanted to have a patch or logo or be inside of that cage, you had to go through this dude. Like, not having a sports agent background, meeting Clay Guida, which when you guys, got together, it kind of changed everything. And then knowing the way that he organized that you had to go through him if you wanted to mess around in that cage. That was huge as the sport's blowing up. So when I'm saying he had all the fighters locked down, all the big budgets, it went through Fosco. Every other manager hated this dude because he was beating them all, right?
True.
That is a true statement.
Very true.
And then to Mo, because I've been knowing both these guys for 10 years, to humble yourself from being the national champion, obviously you can go on through that adversity, and then selling books at the state fair.
It's just T-shirts, too.
And T-shirts.
Outside
I ain't trying to, yeah.
No, outside of the stadium, too.
Outside of the stadium, of a place where you ran the ball, to know, and this is kind of my point, to know that's just what time it is, because that's what he had to restart. Do you know how hard that is? Because everybody wants to start here. That's not how it works. To watch Mo go through that and respect that as his boy, I was like, man, what? That's hard. A lot of people wouldn't do it, straight up, right? So anyway, I just wanted to speak on that because that's the way I feel about you guys, and I think they need to know. Go ahead, John, you want to say something nice?
So thank you.
Hey, getting compliments from John is good. All right, so with me, it really comes down to this. I really don't like to do anything else but lift weights and now do media, right? I really enjoy this because I know the impact that we've seen. But when I'm in my town, the only thing I like to do lift weights. No one really does it as a job. I don't really have anyone to look up to that I know. The coal miners I used to work with told me I wanted to be like Richard Simmons. They didn't know any other personal trainers, right? There was no one around me that said, here's the path. It was really unseen. And so I had to really create this vision in my mind and play these tricks on it, however you say, to say this is the path. I want to save this money as a minor. I want to move to Columbus. I want to start my gym. Well, all of those things happen relatively fast. It wasn't planned that way, situations, this or that. But at 20 and a half years old, I'm not 21 yet, I'm painting the walls of my first personal training studio. I'd say gym, that's a little bit of a stretch. It was 900 square feet. Somebody gave me some dumbbells. My grandma gave me some ankle weights. We pieced it together. Yeah, we pieced it together, right? And so, but I looked at it like this. At 20, the first time the person gave me $20 to personal train, I was like, I'm winning. And to me, if I never got any more successful, then my personal training business was grown enough to support my family and my thing, to me that I had made it from where I come from, right? So if you fast forward and you continue, all I did was continually, steadily grow the business. And then it goes into where I like supplements. I started a supplement business, and I put everything I got into it. When I say everything, I gave away all my clients, a six-figure business I had built. I put everything I got to try to take that thing to the top as much as I could. Every project I've done, I felt the same way. I feel blessed the amount of success that I've been able to have, but I know I got to earn it every day. And that's the kind of thing that I'll talk about here soon, is that it's never enough, meaning from a standpoint is that you can't just coast. And I feel that way every day when I get up, that I got to just earn it back. And we got to do the same thing with you guys when we deliver on the podcast. And so I think that's really how I got here, and I'm hoping to share some information so you guys can apply it to your life. And now, I can't wait for this part anymore.
Yes.
We don't have the drops like we do on the internet. But I think it's time for Fosco's World. Mo!
There we go.
Come on!
For all of the listeners, who knows what's about to go down. So coming in, how tall is he today?
5'2".
No. So we're in Nashville, right? And we travel far, so he's 17'2" today.
17'2"?
Hey, sure. Sure.
That's
So
a big
here we
spectrum
go.
change.
He's 285, right?
That's pretty close.
I'll take that.
Right. He's the coolest guy I know. And he's my dog coming from the Windy City. And I'm interested in what he's got to say because he always throws a curveball.
He sure does.
Yes, but I promise you all should perk your ears up because we are now listening to Donnie Fosco.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you, Tasha. I appreciate it, Mo. Thank you, Mo. Thank you, Mo.
Yeah, I just think giving background, we wanted you guys to really know where we were coming from, kind of where our thoughts start at. And I just want to share with everybody kind of how I was able to become something, right? I'm not anything amazing, but become something. And when I look at not having the tools of a mentor or not having a formal education, if I kind of zone in and I try to give practical information to share with people, I look at two things really. I look at self-awareness, and I always say these things, and if you guys have heard the podcast, you've heard me say this, these things are free. So when I think about coming up, just being out of touch with life, out of touch with reality, I learned really quick that if I was aware that the way I spoke or how I walked or how I talked or the way I moved, if I was aware of how that affected the individuals that I was looking at or dealing with, it gave me an advantage of some sort depending on the situation. In any kind of business dealing. So I always kind of honed in on that because I'm like, okay, this is free, and if I continue to get more self-aware, I think I'm going to be able to make my way with people better and be able to communicate better. So self-awareness it's like the backbone of everything I try to do, and to double down on that, a huge part of self-awareness, in my opinion, is observation. And you guys have probably also heard me say this, because when you're talking, you're not learning. You can only learn when you listen. And observation is something that I think we all owe ourselves, especially when we're looking at people that are doing something, have something, or operating in a way that we want to operate in. Because listen, you can get a degree from anywhere. You can talk to anybody. But to really sit back, emotion-free, not hate someone for having more than you or judge them, and just pay attention to what someone is doing that has something you want, whether it be a skill set or whatever. Again, emotion-free. That's how I really think people truly learn applicable skills that they can then go execute. When you just sit back and shut your mouth, just shut up. Everyone needs to shut up, especially when they're young, especially when they're learning.
It's 18 and over, John. Go ahead. Just let it go, buddy.
Just
shut the fuck up.
Just shut the fuck up. I had to get the first
Come
one out
on,
of me.
man. Let's go.
I had to get the first one out of me. No, everyone needs to shut the fuck up and listen to people. Because nobody at 18 or 20, or I don't care what college you went to or who your dad is or how much money, nobody has all the answers. You have to know what you don't know. So when you can remove emotion from things and say, damn, that's okay, that's how he gets that done. Rip it. Rip it. It's all about the extraction of information. If someone was to put $2,500 in front of every person, they'd probably grab it real quick. But if someone was to be seated with Jeff Bezos from Amazon, they'd probably rather grab $2,500, and that makes you a fucking moron. Because the information you can extract from people who operate on a level that's just ridiculous, or even people who operate on a level much higher than you, it is so much more valuable than that $2,500, which you can make in 1 month or 1 week or 1 day, depending on your position. So I really want people to hone in on information. That's how we empower ourselves when we don't have resources, when we don't have advantages, when we don't have money, when we don't have education. Information. And you're not always going to get a textbook. So please pay attention to people that have something to offer.
No, when I think about self-awareness, every time he talks about it, self-awareness, it starts in many places, but I think self-awareness really starts with yourself. And learning to be quiet and learning to say, who am I and what is it in me that I have to develop, right? Or what is it this person that's talking to me or looking at me, what is this person really saying to me? But I think that you're right, and I always talk about the age of the internet. The internet has conditioned us to keep on pumping and pushing information that really has no purpose. You know what I'm saying? And it's not conditioned us to sit back and learn and consume and be a student of any matter. I said this before, never in our lives have we grown up in a time where people are focused from the time they wake up to the time they go to sleep on taking pictures and pushing information to other people to say, hey, look at me. And I think that mentality is like narcissistic in a way. And it doesn't allow you to be humble enough to learn, to get information, to see who you're dealing with, to gain skills that you would normally do, like in social settings. Does that make sense? Right? And so it becomes all about me and less about John. And these are things that we all do, because if you look on my Instagram, I'm guilty of it too. You know what I'm saying? But I try not to look at myself so much. I try to be more self-aware. I try to be more engaging. I try to be more humble and being in a position to learn. Getting into every space that I've been into in life right now has all been from a place of humility, self-awareness, understanding who I am, understanding what I have to work on, and doing that. And that's how basically I believe my path unfolded. But that's just kind of what comes to my mind, and I'll pass to Corey.
Yeah, one of the main things I've learned from being around John for these last few years working on these projects is when you're super aware and you're in a conversation with somebody, especially in a sales model or just really anything, they're going to tell you everything that you need to know by the way that they're articulating their words, by the things that they're saying, by their body language. And don't just be sitting there waiting to talk. Pay attention to those things, because that's one thing that John has done really well in his sales career, and he used to do it to me probably when I was at Muscle Farm and he was selling me. Probably told him everything he needed to know. But at the end of the day, it's like, I think that right there, these are intangible things that you guys can put in your lives, whether you're trying to get a promotion at work, whether you're doing your own business. It really doesn't matter what you apply it to, but it can make you more effective. And in these segments, that's the things that we want you guys to take away. And that's what I've taken away by dealing with this guy, and on top of what he already shared with you guys.
What I was going to just say is, to what Corey said, I think if we all think about when we're in a conversation, even if the conversation is your friend telling you a story, what do? You think about a story in your head that you went through that relates to it, and you can't wait to get it out, and you stop listening to your friend. Well, you're an asshole, right? I've been an asshole too. But if you stop and pull back and actually think about what you're doing, you're not giving that person their moment, or you're not giving each other the time to share a moment or share a laugh or share information. You're just saying, yeah, get to the end. Oh, there's a 1 second break. Well, my friend, and we did this. Well, it's the same in business. And if you learn to sit back and actively listen to people, just sit back and let them talk as long as they will. They will tell you every fucking thing you need to know to close a deal, to get a job, how to speak to them, how to look to them. But you have to be aware enough that you talking doesn't get that. You listening is how you say, okay, this person likes somebody who's from the Midwest like me. She's brought up Chicago 3 times and how nice people are in the Midwest. Okay, when I respond, I'm going to make sure to load that up in there because this person exactly is showing me these things. So, to me, that's helped my career immensely. And what's cool, I think, about the 3 of us is we obviously have 3 very, very different styles. And I want to know kind of like your tenets, Mo, like on how you feel you were able to just pick yourself up and kind of get here.
Yes. So there's a bunch that I've done to pick myself up and get myself here. I talk to everybody about the importance of self-education and audiobooks and constantly being a lifelong learner. And I think the independence or the motivation behind wanting to learn independently was of great value to myself. And I think that is something, I don't care if you have a degree or not, that is something that you can take with you for forever because the world is forever changing. There's tons of, be it audiobooks or just books written independently by very successful people that if you just sit down with them and, pay you $20 or pay you $5 on an audiobook or $7.99 on the Amazon app, where you get all the books. You know what I'm talking about, right? So
Audible.
Yeah, Audible. You can consume this information, but to kind of like to transition to talk about one thing that I think sticks people, right? So we're here to just give information, and we talk about why do I think some people are stuck. I think one of the biggest things that I've seen probably since I've been out of prison as to why most people get stuck in their path is the fact that people spend too much time counting other people's money, right? And what happens is that I'll get around somebody, or people feeling that they deserve what the next person deserves, and their focus becomes more about what that person has or what that person is doing, and less about how do I get my shit together, right? And so you'll look at me, and somebody may be out here right now and say, who the fuck is this guy, right? Guy went to prison, guy has no education, and you sizing me up based upon your accomplishments, and you feel like you should be sitting where I'm at, right? And so, or you should feel like you should have something, but you've wasted all your fucking time worrying about me when I'm not even worried about you. You know what I'm saying? And not in a negative way. That makes sense, right? And your time should be spent on assessing yourself and your situation and say, okay, if these guys came down from fucking Ohio and they've come here to spend this time with us, what is it I can take from one of these guys? And a lot of that stuff comes from constantly comparing yourself, your financial situation, your career path to yourself, to your peers, to everybody else, and you're constantly looking at what the next person has, and that is what takes people off their path, their journey, right? I never get up in the morning, either when I'm writing down my goals or thinking about myself, is like, yo, at 2 o'clock, I'm going to give a fuck about what Corey Gregory made today. You feel where I'm coming from?
And we're friends.
Yeah, but we'll literally spend time, people like, yo, such and such got a promotion. Like, what does that have to fucking do with you? Nothing. You know what I'm saying? When our ultimate mission should be to develop ourselves and walk out our path. And I'm talking a little bit more aggressive because like that's how I talk to myself like anytime I go off a center. But I think part of that is knowing what you want. And I think that if I called on 5 people in here right now, they couldn't tell me what they actually want. You feel where I'm coming from? I can call and say, what do you want out of life? And what did you do today to get what you want out of life? And 5 people probably couldn't tell me because they've never taken the time to look at themselves and be like, fuck, this is where I'm at. I don't read enough. I don't work out enough. I don't do the things to develop myself, or I don't socialize in circles with people who are trying to unfold themselves. But the majority of my time and the majority of my thoughts are all spent on my neighbor got a new car. You feel where I'm coming from? So, or these guys have more than me, so, I'm going to consume myself with how to get on their level or how do I get what they have. And I think that part messes so many people up. And this is not just a Tennessee thing. This is an Ohio thing, a California thing, and people get on this hamster wheel.
Global.
This is a global thing where people, they quit working on themselves, they quit working on their stuff, and the next thing you know, they get caught into this trap of like self-defeating behavior that basically limits them on where they can go.
I think people default to being cowards, to be perfectly honest, because when you're running your mouth about, your neighbors or this or that, or, oh, they show off their money, even if people do things that are outlandish, what the fuck does it have to do with you, and how is it benefiting you? I just think it's so cowardly because time is our finite resource. Time is our finite resource. It always will be. If you don't know that now, you're going to figure it out someday. And when you're talking about other people, you're wasting oxygen. You're wasting your own time. How can you be worried about keeping up with the Joneses when you are not where the fuck you want to be? How can you do it? And how could you not have a strategy? So you're willing to talk about the fucking Town and Country minivan they just bought, and you are not willing to map out your goals when you talk to your wife or your girlfriend about how unhappy you are about your boss or the money you're making. Shut up about everyone else. Shut up and focus on yourself. This is obvious stuff, but you're not strong enough within, and I'm not trying to single people out. I went through this. We all went through this. You have to man up or woman up and just say, It's my time. It's my time to work on me and develop me. What Mo does, God bless him, I love him, it's got nothing to do with me. I need to focus on my shit.
Yeah, you know what? I came to the conclusion a long time ago that it takes a long-ass time, a lot of work, a lot of perseverance to get even in the ballpark of what you want to try to accomplish, right?
Yes.
I ain't got no time to worry about anyone else. When I used to be at MP and people be like, did you see what Cellucor is doing? Or Max Effort even now, when people, you see what the other direct-to-customer, no. Because we're worried about us. We're worried about how we can make the customer better from our standpoint. I don't care about what they're doing. I don't care what these other fitness dudes are doing because I'm doing me. And if I'm worried about what I'm doing and trying to make myself better and develop myself constantly, I literally have no time. That other stuff just sucks the air out the room. It sucks the air out of what you're trying to do. Like, that's why I always think when these dudes come at me and they're hating on me and doing it, I'm like, if you just worked on yourself in your own business, you wouldn't have to come over here. Yeah. Because I see somebody that, when I used to get caught up in this, and I'm like, that dude who, guy A that I'm hating on or whatever I feel indifferent about, he did something, sacrificed more. It's probably not because he didn't get lucky. You know what I'm saying? Like a guy told me one time, he said, look, I remember I was at the gym and I was all up in steam about something. Man, this ain't going the way I want it to, and I'm not making this, and I think I'm so much better than that. He said, dude, check this out. You're where you're supposed to be. That's what your value is, right motherfucking now. And whether you believe that or not, doesn't matter. You can act like it ain't true, but it is, because that's where you're at. And that's just what time it is. And I thought to myself, man, fuck you. It was Mike Healy. Yeah. This is like a real Christian dude, too, so I didn't really want to say that to him, but I'm like, I'm like, man, fuck you, right? I'm worth like 4 times what I'm making right now. He said, you think you're sweet, but no one else thinks you're sweet because you're not doing something that can take you to that other level. And that really is that's a hard look at yourself. And you got to keep kind of coming back to that.
If you think you deserve more money than you're making right now, go prove it to yourself. We all live in the free market. So if your boss is underpaying you, tell your boss, if you don't pay me more, I'll leave. You'll probably end up getting fired and wishing you never told him that. Because the free market is telling you what you're worth, but you're too much of a fucking moron to accept it. Because you want to do...
Now he's here. Here.
Hey, you want to do what you do. Hey, I work on logistics. Well, help that person out who needs help with graphic design when you can. You know what I'm saying? No, I only do logistics. That's why you're only worth that, because your attitude sucks. And that's why you're going to keep yourself in a box. So, it's just one of those things where everyone wants to complain about what someone else isn't doing for them. Go test it. Go test it.
Is it time for Corey Gregory time now?
Absolutely. It is time for Corey Gregory time. Bust it out, brother.
All right, so here's the deal. One of the things that I think that most known for is not because I was the, star athlete or any type of, overachiever. I'm really just, I've worked really hard, been extremely consistent to be okay at a lot of stuff. That's really the reality. I was, shooting 1,000 jumpers in basketball, and I was, the 6th man, and I averaged, 4 a game. But I was shooting way more jumpers than the dude averaging 20 a game. And I just really kind of knew. And even on my lifting, I remember lifting, not missing workouts. And I used to stack lumber with this dude at the sawmill, and he come through, and he just benched 385. And he was like, oh, you compete in this? And I was benching 300. And I was like, yeah, motherfucker, this is what I do all the time, by the way. So I guess my point is, I realized at a young age that, all right, this is going to be my concept. And now I just started, really being able to talk on it. But it's I don't do anything extra special. I just don't fucking miss. And that's what any of you guys that have followed me, that's what I do. It's if I dedicate myself to, I was squatting 3 years straight, boom. If it's lunging right now, a half mile, 195, I just get on these things that are so consistent in the compound effect over time. I just realize that if I'm going to beat my competition, because this is the way I talk to myself, motherfuckers want my spot. They want my spot. and they're coming for it every day. It's just like in NFL, just like in business, just like whatever it is. There's young crop of cats coming in the league every day, and they want that running back spot that Mo had at Ohio State. They want my spot. And I think to myself, but if I'm getting up at 3 in the morning, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, and I'm learning from John, and I'm learning from Mo, and I'm reading, I'm doing all these things, it takes all of it. It takes all of it, all the time. And that's what I signed up for. I remind my wife a lot when we were doing stuff, this is what we signed up for. Do we get to do things that I've dreamed of? Of course. But there's a price to it. I signed up to be this guy because I knew if I could be this consistent, which, by the way, ain't real sexy. I'm telling you to work fucking harder. That's not real sexy. People are like, oh, yeah, for 20 years. You want to sign up? I mean, that's it. That's really what it is. But it's combined with two things that made everything change. It's combined with a real why. Like a real why. Like standing in that trailer, looking at my mom's paycheck and thinking, like, we're living on that? Like, man, fuck that. I'm going to make that shit in a month. I'm going to make that shit in a week. I'm going to make that shit in a day. Like, I didn't even know where I could take it to. But I just knew, like, this can't just be for me.
This ain't it.
This ain't it. I used to tell myself all the time, like, man, I'm meant for greater things than this. The fuck am I doing here? What the fuck am I doing in this situation? And in no disrespect, I always tell my mom, like, when I tell these stories, like, I wouldn't change it for the world because I wouldn't be me if I didn't go through it. There's no way. There'd be no, like, special sauce to anything. Those trials is what makes you come up and why that self-talk never stops. So between that and finding a passion in fitness, the first time I was like 12 years old. I'm lifting weights with my grandpa, and I saw a little shoulder cut, and I was hooked. He's like, Corey, these are the things that you got to know. Lifting will make you more confident. It'll help you with sports, and the girls like it too. I said, sign me up, Grandpa. Let's go. And at 92 years old, for him to see and be alive now and still see what it's become is unbelievable to me. But really, honestly, every time I feel a little wiggly or a little wussy or a little this, I'm like, gee, what got you here is the separation. The separation that guy or girl is not willing to do what you're willing to do every fucking day. And every day I check myself when I get my ass up at 3, whether I do or don't want to get up, and I look myself in the mirror and said, wake your ass up and get it on, boy.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal, man. Amen to that. It's not sexy, and like I said earlier, we're all still on our missions. I'm sure everyone in this room's on their own mission. And accomplishing anything isn't sexy. What it is it's repetitious, boring at times, doing the same thing every day, finding ways to make it interesting, and having no complaints. Because your complaints are between you and yourself. They're not between you and anybody else. They're between you and yourself. And if you can't solve that shit, you are the reason you're stuck where you're at. I've been there. We all got to check it. But listen, if you think success happens to people, you're going to be waiting on a package from UPS that never arrives. Okay, success doesn't happen. We make it happen by seizing opportunity, okay? We have 2 guys working with us tonight, Jeremy and Trey, okay? These absolutely.
Butt life.
Absolutely. These guys stepped up and said, I just want to be in this. I will work for free because I believe there will be an opportunity. And we looked them straight in the eye and said, oh, if an opportunity comes available and you are committed, we will give you that opportunity. And that's exactly what they've done, and they've set themselves up in a great position because they didn't put this false free market value like I was talking about early on themselves. They knew that not only could they extract a shit ton of information from us, just like you do at college, but that comes with a much heavier debt, but they could also set themselves up to get a job exactly where they want to. I just think the day in and day out stuff wears people down. They say, I'm sick of it. if what you're doing can wear you down, you're not doing the right thing, because what you do should be chock full of passion and vigor and interest. And if it's wearing you down, please have the balls to get out, because it's not your place. Nothing can wear me down. Nothing that I do can wear me down. Not because I'm Superman, because I choose my life. I choose to do the shit I do. No one puts a gun to my head. So I can walk out of here right now, but I don't want to. I want to be here, and it's for a reason. And everything I do is for a reason. But I learned that through a lot of failures. And I think if everybody has a purpose and a reason for their behavior, then they will understand what path to follow to get there, to get to where they want to be. But if we're wandering aimlessly and just waking up and going to work and we think something's just going to happen, you're fucked.
Yeah, I'll say this, and I say it all the time, kind of to John's point. I think a big part of success is separating, what you need to do from what you feel like doing. And I think more people get caught up into the I don't feel like it, and I buy into it. And I think a lot of that comes down to just the first conversation we have with ourselves on a daily basis. You in the bed, it's time to get up. I think that you're a fucking chump when you say, I'm going to sit here. You know what I'm saying? I think you establish a mentality for the day that, hey, I just choose to make an excuse of why I'm going to lay in the bed. Or if you get up, you say, you know what, regardless of how I feel, I know shit has to be done, so I'm going to go out here and attack today. And there's nothing pretty about the whole path to success. It's just a bunch of mundane work, you learning the same things over and over again. You're trying to constantly apply the wisdom that you've acquired to stuff every day, and having the same energy, having the same attitude, and literally staying that course. And it's really like we always talk about discipline brings freedom, and we always talk about how discipline is associated with a bad word.
Absolutely. Like I always say, we talked about this before. I'm like, I'm not taking anything from you because I'm saying force more discipline, exercise more discipline on yourself. Actually, if you exercise more discipline, you get more of what you want. Like, I always talk to my clients, and they're like, oh, I can't not eat pizza. I'm like, well, you can't lose 10 pounds. Like, if you want to feel better and you want to be more confident, you got to do these things. It's no different in business. There's so many correlations here. It's like, I always just think like, well, Corey, you can't do this, you can't do that, because I'm like, but I get to live my dream. Like, what? Just because I have to do these things that have, over 20 years I've put together, they've equaled this. Smoking cigars on Arnold Schwarzenegger's patio at Christmas time. Like, what? You think I could have came up with that shit when I was in that trailer? Lifting sand weights, talking to my mom about nonsense about being a bodybuilder? What? You know what I'm saying?
No,
but that discipline Andrew Carnegie, it's like chapter 4. It's exercise more self-discipline. If you find yourself wavering along the path and you're off this way, you just got to say, let me put it on the line and let me exercise more self-discipline. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but what happens is, and then you start to see things go the way you want them, and you're like, well, shit, I should probably double down on this. It really is that simple, but you got to be the one that can check yourself on it.
I'll say this before we transition on. Like, I honestly think people are crazy. Like, literally, I think they're crazy to get up every day and just aimless. Like the book As a Man Thinketh talk about aimless thoughts or vice. To get up every day and to do something that you don't want to do, that you have no passion for, that you have no zest for. It doesn't help to build your family's legacy. It doesn't help to do anything significant in your life. I think people are crazy just to go through those motions when you literally have all of the control over yourself. Like, this is like America. It's fucking free, everything, right? You can get up and choose, like, what you actually want to do with your life, become who you want to become, right? I got out of prison with fucking $400. You feel where I'm coming from? No formal education, like no access to your most prominent libraries, newspapers coming 3 or 4 fucking days late, locked down for 20 hours out the day, but I just had a belief that I can be more than what I was. You feel where I'm coming from? And then we get in life and you got all this fucking freedom, but people don't want to discipline themselves. They just like, fuck it. I'll just blame everybody else. I make an excuse. or I just don't want to go at something because I'm going to fail at it, you know, or I'm not going to figure it out, or somebody may criticize me, you know what I'm saying, or somebody will talk shit about me because I'm taking pictures and signing books and selling shirts outside the stadium. Like, I don't give a fuck about what they think. You feel where I'm coming from? And you got to have, like, that much nerve in your head to understand who you can really become. Like, because everybody creates their life, everybody in here. And I know that sounds like very cliche, but it's the truth. You know what I'm saying? And you really don't have like you really don't have a time clock on when your thing will happen. You feel where I'm coming from? Like, and I think like taking that time clock
It
off.
never happens when you want it to happen either.
No, but like to take it off your head and to say, like, yo, I'm just going to live my life and I'm going to unfold my life and I'm going to do better for myself and become a better individual and to make things less about money and more about like getting where I ultimately want to get in life. Like, I think like that's the secret sauce right there. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, the majority of people who I talk to who are not where they want to be, at least from my assessment, it's for one reason, and I see this everywhere. People are afraid to step up to the plate because they're afraid they're going to fail, right? I guarantee you half the people in the crowd think about something that's almost like a fantasy in their fucking head when it comes to if I could do this every day. But they haven't done it because they're afraid of what someone's going to think. They're afraid of what their brother's going to say, what their mom's going to say. But that lives in you, and it's real because it's what you want. But you're denying it because you're afraid to step up to the plate and roll with the punches. Listen, like, entrepreneurs aren't that smart. We're not that smart. We're just willing to commit to something and say, fuck what you think. Fuck what you think. Like, I might fail. I have failed. But I'm going to try to get it. While you're sitting there criticizing me, you know, you're working at the post office bitching to your wife every night. Shut up, man. I'm going to go try to make my life. So I think for everybody out there, really, really fucking think. Like, is that thing I've been thinking about for 3, 4, 5 years, is that real? Fuck yes, it's real. And it can become reality. The reason we open this show with such a dark intro is because that's what we were given. The world didn't give us fucking money or anything. The world gave us shit, but we didn't cry about it. We still dreamed. And we still had the balls to follow our dreams. And we still had, honestly, the strength to subtly not give a fuck what anybody thinks, because all I know is I'm going to respect you. I'm not going to talk bad about you. If you want to talk bad about me or disrespect me, you're over here, man. I mean,
here's the way I kind of processed it, right? I started to think, the fear started to leave the things that I was trying to attain quickly because really I was more afraid of regret. Because no one wants to lay down. At some point, it's over for all of us, right? Like, we're enjoying today, but we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And that came to me really like once when my dad passed away like 10 years ago in a car accident. I started thinking to myself like, what? I'm gone one day, or when I'm heading that direction, am I gonna really lay there and go, why didn't I really try that? Because my uncle said he didn't think it'd work? Like, these thoughts are so pure to you guys. Like, they're not anyone else's. Like, no one at that moment where I knew that the fitness stuff lined up with the why and I kind of knew the spot I was heading, like, no one could have really told me that. I'm the only one that could come up with that. And on top of it, I didn't allow anyone to influence that it couldn't work. I didn't have a fucking plan B. Because guess what? It's the only thing I like to do. I was really screwed if it didn't work. So I didn't even think about that. I just knew it was going to work because it doesn't feel like work because I love it so much. And no one can tell you that. And the thing that you think, like, I always use this. What happens if you're like, you know what? I want to be a basket weaver. And you're like, you go to your parents like, I could be the best motherfucking basket weaver. in the U.S. And they're like, that shit is crazy. But guess what? There's a company out by us that made like $500 million weaving baskets. You feel me? So it's like, if that's your thing, then don't be scared to, throw it from the trees. Because here's what it is. There's such a small percentage that actually go for it. Really go for it. And tell everybody. And what happens is people around you, and we've all had this, they're not going to understand it. Because they can't. They literally can't. They can be fearful for you because of their own insecurities. Like, my parents had no clue what I was doing. Like, my friends had an intervention with me when I lived on campus because they said I wasn't drinking with them on Thursdays anymore. Because I was 20 years old trying to build a business. I didn't let it stop me. You just literally cannot let anyone hold you back because the thought is so pure to you, and that's it.
Caring about what people think is a true curse.
Yeah, it
Truly,
limits so many people. It limits so many people. I think, listen, that's some deep shit we just laid out, right? I want to go, yeah, thank you, right? But I think it's time to transition to one of the most famous programs that has ever been heard on Business and Biceps Mode. Do you know where I'm going with this?
I'll let you go with it.
All right. It's called the MYD program. Yeah. And listen, we have 9 more minutes before we're going to have questions and answers, so y'all motherfuckers better get ready. But I think we should wrap up this amazing segment. Yeah. John Fosco.
You're going rogue right here, brother.
A little bit.
You're fucking going rogue.
I apologize beforehand.
You're going rogue.
Because listen, there's certain things. This is a comedy club. This dude is so funny. Like, I work with him on a regular basis. I can't believe half the shit he says, does, or operates. But he's earned it because he can do whatever the fuck he wants, which is part of what we just talked about. But John, if you can give just a little bit of insight on what the Manage Your Dick program is, I think this would really help the audience.
Unreal.
Sorry, Jeremy's mother.
Off script.
Sorry, Jeremy's family. I feel bad.
Ripped. All right, well.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Listen, I'll tell you this right now. I'll tell you guys a couple things. We're going to start with this. So we all buy, car insurance, right? We all insure.
Everybody has car insurance.
We all insure everything we do, right? And this one's going out to actually the men and the women. But, we talk about working so hard and just dialing in your mind and all this shit. And the MYD program started not as a joke, as serious, because I have seen some extremely smart people, brilliant people, people who are very wealthy who have absolutely lost it all because they're perverts. Well, most of us are perverts, but they're perverts, and they cannot, different from most of us, hopefully, they cannot control when they see the girl in the office, or for you ladies, the guy in the office. They gotta shoot a text message that's a little inappropriate, and this climate we live in, it's an uber-sensitive climate, and if we're gonna talk about success, part of it is the preservation of it. And part of it is being a good person and not a scumbag, you know what I'm saying? And there's a time and a place for sexual interaction, but literally, I've learned, no pun intended, firsthand, that...
Yes! That's what I was looking for, Bosco!
Enough out of you. Firsthand, that nothing, when you're thinking like when you're thinking like a sexual deviant, which is absolutely normal, some would say healthy, when you're thinking, the key word's thinking, not acting, when you're thinking like that, I have found that nothing changes brain chemistry faster, it's unbelievable, than just a monster release, whether you're a man or a woman. And I swear to God, I can think about something at 7:01, release all over my living room, and at 7:03, listen to me, at 7:03, my thought process...
Chemistry's changed.
No, dude, it's absolutely a 180. It's responsible. It's not... My thoughts aren't, again, no pun intended, they're not loaded. My thoughts are not loaded. Everything's out. Okay, and it's on the table, and I
so
don't
good.
need to think about it. And what I'll tell you is this: you learn to do that, because I'm not going to take everything I've worked for, and I don't want everyone out here to, take everything they've worked for and put it at risk because they let their sexually deviant mind run wild and they send someone a photo that they don't want to fucking see. It's really popular in our society now to show things, off to people and all that stuff. But it can come around to bite you in business, especially the higher you ascend, the more serious your position is. Man, you're a target, right? You're a target. Go ahead.
I give you this.
Corey went rogue on me. Help me out here.
No, even
You
as
fucking killed that, John.
No, I'll say this: the more you set out to be somebody, the more you dominate your life, the more that you start to accomplish. You start to get this God-like complex where you feel that you are this like dominant person over everybody, or this dominant person over task, right? And so when you see women, that thought goes into your head. This is serious stuff. And so you begin to think like the woman is kind of like a task or something to be taken down in a very animalistic nature. And I think any entrepreneur, if they like bluntly spoke to you about it, absolutely, that is a real thing. I can't speak from a woman's perspective, but I could just speak from a man's perspective that like a high sex drive and entrepreneurship kind of go hand in hand. But you also know you can become very distracted from thinking that everything is about your penis.
Learn to love yourself.
Yeah, and it can really become a thing. And so
that was a bad joke.
Yeah.
The other ones you sold were good though.
Yeah.
No, I was trying to be serious. Like, it is, and we've seen a lot of people lately get into a lot of trouble from being a lot more aggressive, and then with the hypersensitive culture of sending, different messages and coming on to people.
I mean, Jeff Bezos, right? We
Yeah,
brought him up
he's-
earlier.
yeah.
His penis is floating around the internet right now, and I haven't heard good reviews about it. And seriously, I haven't looked, but I mean, the guy is the
never saw
richest
it.
man in the world.
Yeah, I don't know how that makes any
I don't
sense
know.
when you're the richest dude.
I mean, if you're the richest guy, I'm sure you could figure out a way to
the-
undo that.
So we had a list of topics that we were going to do before we did Q&A. That one just happened to be on there, so I thought that would lighten it up a little bit. But the key is, why I brought it up is, when you listen to John on the podcast, he delivers stuff. Well, I sit beside him, so he's usually like spitting on me,
Yeah, a
and
lot
he's
of
like
spitting.
yelling.
Yeah.
And here's what it is. He punches you in the fucking face. But then if you really listen to what he's saying, it's always fucking true. And if you put it into play, it always works. So that's kind of my point, because especially the men in this fucking place, know exactly what he's talking about. And so it's like no one wants to like own up to it, but they're like, yeah, John's right. Yeah, John's right.
One guy right now is even like, like I'm kind of hard. You know what I'm saying?
So I think it's it's perfect. The jokes were amazing, John. You did very good. Maurice, before we take
I'm
question and
staying on
answer,
that.
is there
Well-
anything else that you want to share with the crowd before we start taking Q&A?
Is everything okay down there?
Everything's okay.
Okay.
All right, yeah. So, I don't know. It seems like once you start talking, you have. Before I got here, I'd be thinking I have so much to say, and you want to just constantly get information out. But I would just say, if you haven't already, subscribe to our podcast and kind of go back to our catalog of information and begin to look at it. If you haven't already. Because I think we talk about a ton, but to come and experience this, I was telling these guys back here, I don't think y'all realize, like for me, before we got here, I was talking to these guys about prison. You know what I'm saying? And so then to like talk about prison and prison being a reality and some of the things that have taken place, and just to look at my life and to go to a green room and then somebody on a Tuesday will even sit down in front of you to even actually hear something from me, I think like it is the coolest shit. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like I got a responsibility now to just be like, yo, I got to give these people the truth or real information that you can take back to business. And our platform isn't really entertaining, but it isn't Instagram-ish, it isn't Twitter-ish, it isn't whorish. It's not like you can sign up for $9.99 and your life will change if you read these 2 books, right? It's a bunch of fucking work, you know what I'm saying? But it's the truth, right?
Fucking truth.
And that's what this platform is all about. It's not sexy, it's not like cool. It's not like cheesy that we're gonna do, and then you're like, oh, these guys fucking rip me off. No, it's a bunch of fucking work, but it works. You know what I'm saying? And I've been able to sit down with Warren Buffett, right, the richest man in the world, for 5 hours, And a lot of the shit that I'm talking about, or that we're talking about in general, is really an extension of what he's talked about. You know what I'm saying? And this shit takes a long fucking time, but there's nothing wrong with things taking a long time and getting rich slow.
Don't be in a rush.
Yeah, and there's no rush. Like, I always tell these guys, if I had $20 million in my pocket right now, I don't think too much would change. You know, I might get a private jet to fly and bounce around places, but I don't think nothing in my life would change from a day-to-day basis. I would still have to fucking work every day. You know what I'm
How
saying?
old was Warren Buffett when he made his?
Oh yeah, great thing. No, so he didn't make his first 150 grand until he was 48, and so he had made it. So I seen Warren Buffett when he was 78 or 79 at the time.
So crazy.
And he was like, Maurice, he was like, just think about this. He said, I made my first 150 grand at 48, and so it really put context in my brain. He said, I've only been rich for 30 years. And so, you know, we have this hypersensitive culture, I tell you, where you think like, yo, at fucking 25, I'm supposed to be rich. At 27, I'm supposed to be rich. At 32, I'm supposed to have a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, a 5,000 square foot home. I'm supposed to have 25 investment properties. And you'd be like, dude, who the fuck are you listening to? You feel where I'm coming from? But if you turn on the internet, you'll think that you're losing because somebody's selling you a fucking fantasy. And this is not the fantasy program.
And it creates this pressure cooker. It's not a fantasy program. It creates this pressure cooker it's an illusion. Everybody's in it. And in the younger demo, we're seeing it even more and more because they think by 21, 22, they should have their own Facebook. And it really isn't about that. So the kind of crusade, essentially, that Business and Biceps is on is to give the real information that's tactical and that will work. But you have to work at it constantly. And
Yeah,
I think that's not the whore program. Like
Right.
No.
We're playing the long game, right? So we could make our audience 20 times bigger if we did what Grant Cardone did and showed off cars and houses and money. But all he's doing is he's using these kids as his little hose, and he's the pimp. And we're not into that. We just want to share. I think I can speak for us all. We feel blessed, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
So if we're blessed, I feel it's our obligation to share whatever we can. I'm not even going to say anyone here is an expert, but we have learned a couple lessons, and we're just trying to share them.
Yeah, and what I want to say is we're real thankful that you guys came out. We want it to be real interactive, right? So look at it like this. There's an opportunity right this second. Whatever's been swirling around in your mind as you sit there listening.
28 minutes left.
Yes, we have 28 minutes left, and we actually allocated that time for you guys because if you have anything we can help you with.
So sincere.
It is the truth. Yes. John, don't hug. He never hugs me. I try to hug him sometimes. He won't hug me. So it's like, so I think that I'm a lovable guy. So I'm like, oh, he's like, So I think it's like one of those things where it's like right now there's certain opportunities.
Jeremy has the mic.
Jeremy got the mic. There's certain opportunities in your life where you can get
Bud Life.
exact information that we can try to help you with your situation, and now is the time. So
And Jeremy has a new
Jeremy's
coat
got
on
the
tonight,
mic,
too,
and
so.
somebody got to be the first motherfucker. So let's see who it is. I love it. Cool. Jeremy got the mic. Stepping up in the max effort zip. I love it.
Indoor gardening coat.
So I'm a supervisor for a crew of 48 people. I've been in it for 5 years. When I got there, it was low performance. We built it to high performance and actually hit an industry standard setting that goal. Once we've done that, I'm finding it hard to get that same motivation out of the guys. Any thoughts?
So
on how to
you're
correct
saying
that?
supervisor for 48 people.
Yep.
You guys hit a certain goal.
Yep.
And now you're plateaued.
Correct.
Interesting. John, you got anything?
So what did you do to cause the radical change that made you set an industry standard?
It was basically accountability, setting a standard that we weren't going to just coast, that we had a destination that we were trying to hit.
Okay.
In doing that, it's very physical jobs. Guys bought into it. We hit it. We rode that. Our standard didn't dip until here recently. We have about 8% turnover on 48, but I can't. It's as me as a leader, I feel like I'm failing those guys because I can't reignite that same passion toward them.
What did they get? What was their compensation?
Yep.
What did they get in return for hitting that standard?
It was a $500 bonus at the end of the year added on, and then one guy got a trip out of it, so the company provided that for the trip.
Gotcha. And do those same incentives apply?
Yes.
Gotcha. So you're just having kind of a management issue.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, especially when there's turnover. And what I would say is, whether we like it or not, the majority of people, especially if you're dealing with 48, are motivated by money. And if $500 in a trip did it before, and this semi-new crop of people isn't responding to the same thing, you may want to talk to upper management and say, listen, we hit an industry standard, which I assume is a big achievement. We need to offer more because the same deal, it's not working.
Right.
The numbers show it. So we are obviously profitable. We need to make the incentives larger because as a manager, I'm doing everything I did before, but they're not responding. You know,
Man, I think I want to, because in the environments I worked in, between the mine or the sawmill, what I saw was guys want more time off, which I know sounds crazy, but from what we just talked about. But like John said, you got to sweeten the compensation. And here's what I would do. There's obviously another level of management ahead of you, right?
Sure, yeah.
What does it mean when you hit that standard? You know, like what does that mean to the company from a dollar standpoint? Like if you can present to them like, look, we're here, and this means X. We go to here, and I can sweeten the pot with these guys get an extra week vacation, maybe the top 3 guys. We get this, whatever, $1,000, like you, because it just made exponentially so much more money to the company, right? I think that, and we've found this at Max. Some things that worked a year are going to work no more.
Right.
Shit changes.
Yep.
And people get immune to $500, and they're like, man, that's shit. I'm just going to miss work today.
Right.
But if we're like, man, I get an extra week vacation, and I can win a G, and then one dude wins a trip on top of it, like then it's like almost something you can't resist. And if you can present it to management, like we're going to make an extra $100,000 if we hit this, and I'm only trying to ask for, you know, a whole compensation pattern of this much money. I mean, I think then that maybe is the presentation of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I ran through a similar issue like this, and I got some advice from the guy. He actually started the Patron brand. And what he actually did, and it actually worked for us, was that he overpaid the people for their job, right? And so he knew that they couldn't go make that money elsewhere. But what he did with the actual job is that I overpaid him, but then he gave him more responsibilities and bigger goals to hit. So he knew it would motivate him to want to make this type of money because he knew he couldn't go make it elsewhere, be it with his education or be it the environment that they were in. And so what I did is that I basically slimmed down the staff. I gave our employees more money than I know that they can make anywhere else. And I managed to expectations. And so was able to give corrective action plans, was able to basically give clearly defined paths to basically hit their productivity. And when they didn't, it really comes back to you not being able to discipline them. Because if this is a consistent problem, like you have to put your foot up somebody's ass. And that's not the attractive part because you become friends with people. But business is, and I think John said it the best, if you happen to be friends with somebody in business, like that's cool, but I get into business to make money. And everybody in here, I don't get in business to be friends. I get into business to make money.
Right.
And making money is the only thing. And, you know, I've lost a lot of people, a lot of friends, and I don't give, you know, 2 shits anymore. I used to care because I was like, I wanted to be their peer, right? I want to be likable. But you can't be the likable boss. I tell you like that. Right. The boss is supposed to be the person or the supervisor, the leader, whatever you want to call it or title it. That guy's supposed to be the guy who's leading the charge and making sure that we're driving revenue, keeping expenses down, and cutting off waste. And so you have to ask yourself, like, what are you enabling? Because if you never discipline me, like back to the prison saying, in prison when you go in, they say if you allow it, you deserve it. So if you allow these guys to fuck up and not hit their goals, are you then a horrible leader for not checking them? Right. You know what I'm saying? Yep. If I went in your pocket and I took something out your pocket right now and you let me take it, I say, oh, fuck, this guy's sweet. You feel where I'm coming from? Does that make sense? Yep. You know, so if you allow it, you deserve it. So that's just my advice.
Well, and once you create momentum and have it going, one of the hardest things is to recreate it. Like, so when it's moving, you got to keep footing on the gas, keep adding to it, so it's like a lot of people, they coast it, and then when it falls off, they're like, fuck. And we've done it. I mean, all of our business has done it, man.
Let me tell you this. Getting rid of people is part of the program. Man,
It
dude,
checks
listen
people
to me.
faster than
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, listen, man, you start getting rid of people,
Yeah.
like the people who you've built the business with and hit those expectations with may not necessarily be the same group of soldiers who are possible to go on, right? All right, you help us reach these goals, but okay, he's helped me to reach it, but he's comfortable and he feels entitled now, right? Yeah. He's coming in, now he comes up under new expectations. So in the HR process, when I'm hiring new guys, hey, bro, this is the bottom line. He doesn't know anything different. And so all those motherfuckers who want to talk shit in the office, get the fuck out of here. You disrupting this shit now, you losing sleep at night. Fuck that shit. Right. I don't care. If you came to my office, you found out, like, I'm cool on stage, but fuck that shit. Get out of here. You know what I'm saying? This business is to make money, and that is it.
It's true.
Very good, Mo. Next question.
Thank you.
No problem, man. Who's going to be number 2?
And I know Jeremy's going to throw up, but anyway. I work for his mother's company, and it's kind of interesting, Corey. I want to know what was the pivotal moment that hit you one day that you decided that you wanted to get out. So this is kind of a 2, because it's not something you mentioned when you did your introduction. So I want to know what was it that you all of a sudden one day said, I'm out?
Pivotal moment, like I want to get out of my situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. So I kind of mentioned it briefly, but I didn't really elaborate on it. I remember coming home after school. I couldn't drive yet, so I was probably like maybe 14 or 15. And I remember seeing it was like the W-2s had come out. Mm-hmm. My mom was a waitress, and she claimed her tips, she did whatever. And I remember seeing her W-2, and she had made like literally like under $10,000 for the year. And I was like, and that's when I said, like, how the fuck are we living on this? And I remember just feeling just fed up, because watching that struggle and that financial like pressure undertone. I don't know, as I got older, like my parents probably like didn't really match up like anyway. I think they were both like pretty good looking people, and they just kind of got together and then like didn't realize that they were like really that compatible, to be straight with you. But at the end of the day, all that financial shit just put it in a blender constantly. Okay. And my dad was spending so much money on the lottery. Then the coal mine was on strike. They tried multiple businesses that never worked. They went bankrupt one time. It literally was so check to check and below money check, like so often. I was just like, and I talk about this now, like I was like, I'm gonna act crazy if I got to. I never wanted to be that way. Right. I don't ever want to fucking feel like this anymore. And so to me, and then I started telling myself all these things, literally like, I'm reading all these magazines, I'm starting to build some confidence, because obviously the internet wasn't really happening then yet. Right. So I'm like, man, I'm just fucking meant to do big things. I started telling myself that. I watch a lot of mob movies and a lot of rap videos. Like, my shit is out there, but it's just the truth. And I used to be like, I'm going to be on the cover of magazines, I'm going to have my own gym, and fuck all this noise, I'm about to change it. And I think when I started to like really tell myself that it was on me, like really on me, and that I would read about these guys that had changed, like, and I met some people like this as I got to Columbus, that what their grandpa did changed like 5 generations. So I started putting this narrative in my head, like, fucking that could be me. I got it. Like, I got enough pop that I could be that guy. And that the next group of my family's financial IQ will be completely different. They'll believe that within their skill set or their ability that they could do something that they like to do, because that's what dad does, and that their normal will be so different than my normal. And so I was like just thinking of all this crazy shit. It's just wild that it came true, to be honest with you. But that's seeing her W-2 is what sent it off. I really just didn't know how much money we really didn't have. Next question. Oh, we got one over here.
Just want to know how you guys would approach building like a strong team or department in an industry that isn't driven by money, or where money isn't what's being produced. I'm a teacher and looking to build a really strong team, but money is a limit because we don't have that able to make those offers or anything like that. Money's not what's measured and produced, so a lot of it is intrinsic, and how you can build a strong team where you are a little bit more limited with intrinsic motivation.
The first thing that came to my head, and this is tough, money motivated or not, but this is what I would recommend, is there's a lot of people who look for a job, and they think they kind of know the landscape. And then there's people who come in and they are grateful for an opportunity, and those people are typically coachable. And I would say in that position, I wouldn't hire the semi or the know-it-all. I would look for people who want to learn from you and who are coachable, because that's how you create a team. Because when someone's coachable, you share a mindset, you share a destination, you share goals, and they don't have these preconceived notions of what they deserve or all this stuff. They're willing to listen, and I think that is at the core of bringing in good people, especially in a non-money motivated scenario.
Yeah, I believe that, as you were saying, the first thing I thought of when I transitioned, I think from like when I first started to building a stronger team, it was my inability at first to clearly define goals and expectations. And who's committed to the goals and expectations has less to do about the players or the people, and more about can you get what I'm selling? You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of times we try to put assumptions on who should basically fulfill that role because we may like them. But I've come to find out that it's more women. To be honest with you, more women and third-party people who don't say enough or say much ends up basically being your better performing people. So I would say a lot of that is built around building strong teams, building culture and company. Everything comes back to the leader. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been in coaching environments my whole life, and my strongest coaches clearly define like what it is that we have to do, clearly define how we're going to get there, and clearly establish expectations. And kind of to this guy's point, and being able to discipline people. Like, you know what I'm saying, when you're talking about leading people, if you don't have, like, you got the backbone of a jellyfish, you out of here. You know what I'm saying? You got to have, like, a strong, for real, seriously, you got to be a strong dude or a strong woman to be like, yo, these are the expectations, but man, you're not delivering. I love you. I've been over to your 4th of July barbecue. Our kids are friends, but you got to get the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? Straight up. And
It's true. That's, John's mom was a teacher. My wife was a teacher. I think that,
can't fire teachers, though.
Yeah. But I think when you're building, I think the thoroughness of the process of you bringing on a team and not being afraid to be real direct is huge, man. And you got to know exactly, like, what I love about most teachers is they're, like, nurturing, right? They care, but there's a lot of them that are just kind of checked out, too. They might have 5 years left. They might have this, whatever situation. You can see it because, I mean, I have 3 kids, so I'm through there meeting all the teachers. You can see it. I can hear it from them. You guys probably have it in your school. And so what you're trying to do is avoid, you're trying to avoid the checked out ones, right? And so I think that process has to be like just a little bit more rigorous of trying to find that team. Take your time. Ask unique questions. Your interview should be way different than every other interview they've ever even fucking encountered. And you should challenge yourself to do that. And to Mo's point, like, and I've gotten a lot better with this since I've worked with John. I've had to fire like 5 guys I work out with. That ain't fucking easy. Just because they couldn't meet the expectations, because Corey in the gym can't be Corey at the office. But you know what I mean?
Even to his point, like, so teachers have a lot of unions and we deal with schools, but just being able to like politely deliver a checking to somebody, like, you know what I'm saying, but like directly and politely doing it, because like go back, like put this on your board. If I allow it, I deserve it. Like, who are you to come in here like for like the last 7 months and just to know that this is a problem, but you're scared to address it? You know what I'm saying? Like, who are you helping? The kids become like the byproduct of like the lazy ass teachers or the teacher who has a shitty attitude. So the kids become the consequence. And so you have to like ask yourself, like, what disservice am I doing to these kids, but allowing you to just basically be an asshole or to think it's all about you, or these kids would be better if their parents were better. Like, I'm so tired of hearing that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like the default saying for teachers. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is it that I can do to improve this? But I'm telling you, leaders of companies clearly defining what I want and what I expect, and then do you model that behavior every day? And then if you don't hit up to that standard, say it like, bro, I'm going to say it to you in private. I'm going to say it to you in public if I have to. But checking people, there's nothing wrong with checking people if you're there for the right reasons. Because you know the thing that you're doing is a self-serving is to service more people, and you owe that to them. You know what I'm saying? Or you get your ass out. You know, or you may be occupying a seat for somebody who does have that courage. It makes sense.
Yeah, and John always talks about when you, in the correct manner, talk to somebody direct, it's not confrontational.
No.
You know what I mean? That's the one thing, like, John, I'll watch him talk direct to people, and they get all defensive, and they think but he's talking very just direct.
Clear.
It's not, and clear, and it's not in a mean way. It's just like, this is what I expect. Here's your accountability, basically punch in the face in a nice way, and that's just what time it is. And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people, but that separates a lot of people.
Yeah, I think just human nature in general is to, a lot of people fear confrontation, but they don't define it clearly. Speaking direct to somebody is not confrontation. That's effective communication. You know what I'm saying? And confrontation is has no place in business. But direct communication, it may come off harsh, right? But at the end of the day, if you're communicating directly and you're not emotionally loaded, you owe it to whatever business you either are running or work for to communicate to people like that.
I think we definitely have time for, we got two more. One more. There you go.
Thank you. You guys have all mentioned reading, whether Mo, I think As a Man Thinketh, G, Think and Grow Rich, Fosco, Art of War. How much time do you guys devote to reading, whether emails, journals, all that shit?
I think my life kind of runs off of emails. So I think I've become like I should probably give a class on how to return emails, right? But no, I'm
I don't think we return them, do we, John?
So their approach is a little bit different than mine. But I don't, and even now, I don't listen to as many audiobooks as I have in the past, or even read a ton. And I think because I'm substituting my learning from this podcast, and this deal is what's helping me out. But emails, I direct traffic, I call it, through emails. You know, I give goals and objectives and manage through email, and I make sure that I can read the thread to see if I communicated something to you, and I get confirmation on if I over communicated something, so you understand what I'm asking you, and giving deadlines and due dates. So I run our entire company all through email for the most part, unless I have to show up to a meeting here and there.
Monday through Friday, kind of part of my whole schedule is I've got about 30-minute drive to the gym. I lunch for about 30 minutes, and I have a 30-minute drive home from the gym. And I'm usually trying to find or study material that I can bring to the podcast, especially if it's a recording weekday, whatever we're working on, or I'm going back to some type of material. I'm actually forcing myself to actually read a book more often. I do most of my stuff audio because it's just the most convenient currently. But mine's like probably about 60 minutes to 90 Monday through Friday. On the weekends it's a little bit not as like detailed because of the kids stuff and some other things. But I get like a solid hour a day, if not a little bit more, just because it's just going on while I'm doing things that I'm able to put it on.
Yeah, I go in phases. I almost, you brought up The Art of War. I lean on that book like I think a lot of people lean on the Bible. I think it basically is a blueprint of how I think. And sometimes I need to be reminded things, so I'll revisit it. But I just, at least at this point in my career, I really focus on kind of checking out of technology as much as humanly possible and immersing my brain in the arts, because I find what I need to do more and more now is be creative. And being creative doesn't come from binary tasks. It comes from free thought. And what inspires free thought for me is the arts. So yeah, I would say I go in phases, and I use The Art of War when I need it.
Got another question? He's right here. And then we'll come over here too. We got one in the back. We got a few more.
Yeah, Corey, you run Muscle Farm, and it's like this massive corporation, and then you sell that and go to Max Effort. You go from like a white-collar company to the blue-collar, old-school gym, what's the difference, and why is Max Effort more successful in your eyes?
The funny thing is, too, not the funny thing is, but me and John talk about this a lot. They're so different, right? Max Effort, by a balance sheet standard, is more successful. Muscle Farm sold more products currently, if we go apples to apples, but business is about making money. Muscle Farm was, we were on pace, we sold $500 million of products while I was there, from inception, from starting it. The problem is that we were always pushing in crazy fashion to try to be like $1 billion. That's a whole different program than running a business, financially sound, making quality products, giving a ton of swag out that I see all through the crowd. And just, it's really two separate, completely different deals. I got to tell you, what's different is, I like my life a lot better now. Now, the things that I learned, no one could have ever taught me. When you deal with numbers at that level, growth at that level, good people and bad people at that level, it teaches you so much. That's how I met John. That's how Maurice knew who I was. That's how a lot of you guys knew me originally. It's like it put me at a level in the business that I always aspired to be at, but I didn't like everything about my life. Part of the reason why I left, I woke up one day, I was like, this just ain't for me no more. And I remember my father-in-law, he was like, so you're just gonna call the office and just tell them you're done? You just don't want paid anymore? I'm like, yeah, I think so, pretty much. I'm like, I'll just take my shares, sell them, and just do something else after my non-compete is up, and started Max Effort with John, and it was so refreshing. I've done everything for 7 to 10 year, 7 to 8 year, 10 year increments. There's personal training was a heavy part of my life for 10 years. That's all I did. Muscle Farm, that's good because I'm saying it the opposite way, is Muscle Farm was about 8 years of my life, and now I've got Post Muscle Farm, which is Max Effort, Business and Biceps, my site, and all these things in old school that are just so exciting to me. They're really me. I'm like a grungy blue-collar dude. I might have done the modeling stuff, but that's just a byproduct of me lifting and doing all these things. That's just part of the story, right? And so I can't tell you, as John always talks about, I went towards my smile. I knew that my straight up the way that I just operate just didn't match up with any of those people no more. And if I allowed myself to be there, then I deserved what was going to come because of it. And I did the thing that wasn't probably the most popular, which was say, let me go ahead and give this up because if the time is right, it's time for me to do something else. And so, man, I can't, the interaction is where it's at for me. The stuff when we're creating these products and we see how much you guys like them and all, it's smaller, but it's more successful in a financial way, and that I'm really proud of. And I think that there's something to be said that I can teach in a business school. I can stand up one day and go, yo, I had a company that did $170 million in a year. That shit's crazy. But a company that does beep, I can't tell you because we're private, is way more successful on a balance sheet. So that's kind of the story behind that. Next. We got a dude decked out in the back.
Hey, how's it going? I just want to say, me and my business partner, who's also my girlfriend, we were at a convention the entire day at ClickFunnels. We invested over $1,000 to be at the event, and we left early once I found out that you guys were going to be here.
Yes.
$50, and I've learned by far way fucking more than that entire fluff convention. So
Yeah.
just want to give a shout out to you guys.
Thank
The
you.
90 minutes I've learned way more. My return on investment for $50 has been 10x. So guys, you
Appreciate
crushed
that.
it. You crushed it.
20x.
Where
Fuck
you-
Grant
where you
Cardone.
from, man?
20x.
Where you
There
from?
we go. But my question is to you, Corey. So I'm from Ireland.
Okay. I love
Yeah,
Ireland. Ireland's
yeah.
my favorite spot. I love Guinness. Let's go. Come on.
My question to you, Corey, is one of my dreams is that I forgot once I started my business 9 months ago. One of my dreams is actually to get into fitness modeling. And I wanted to ask you, this year I want to focus on my brand and getting on YouTube and exposing myself. But my question is, how do I stand out from the crowd? I get, you have to be in shape and stuff, but for you, you've done multiple photo shoots and multiple cover models. How do I do that?
Yeah, I think that one, it's a dying industry. That's part of the problem. Not the fitness industry, but the magazine shit is pretty much. I mean, there's like one magazine now, so it's like that thing has almost kind of passed itself by in a way. But there's other things that kind of equate in that same, kind of regards, right? There's still Men's Health, there's still Men's Muscle and Fitness, there's still some of these out here. But at the end of the day, it's like standing out is really the biggest thing. And we talked about this earlier on the podcast that drops tonight, actually, with a guy that's local, that Eddie. Is it International Eddie in here?
International.
Oh, there he is, my dude. So Eddie, hey, so check this out. Stand out from the crowd. This is a great story. We were coming down here to Zanies. My dude Eddie hit us up and said, yo, I got an Airbnb 1 block from Zanies. You all can stay there. Dope spot, by the way. I just need a little bit of your time. Value add, put it out there. I sent it to the guys. Said, hell yeah. Everybody's like, that place looks dope. Let's go. We're right around the corner. Eddie comes over for that hour today to ask us. And I said to him, I said, brother, you getting your shot? You're on the fucking podcast today. And he was like, I said, so put the mics on. You're going to ask it. And so everybody can listen to it, right? And this is one of the things we talked about. And it's individuality. First off, if you got an Irish accent, motherfucker, I'm jealous of that. I'll tell you that straight up, right? And secondly, I think it's like the reason why I stood out is because no one could really copy me because it really was unique to me. I did these things. It was my passion to try to reach these levels. But really, I'm like, I used to tell Louis Simmons all the time at Westside, like, I'm a fitness model. Like, I'm a power lifter, like in a fitness model body. Like, that's just fucking weird, right? But it worked for me because that's just the truest thing to me. So when people see my content, it resonates because it's so real. When they see any of our content, it resonates because it's from a real spot. So what you have to identify is, what's that mean to you? Same shit I said to Eddie too. Like, it's individuality wins. There's a million motherfuckers that do the same shit. You know how many motherfuckers got abs on Instagram? But I'm fucking whooping all their asses. But it's because I'm so real to myself, and if they don't like it, next, they go to someone else. It's okay. But there's going to be an audience that's going to like exactly what you're about, if you know what you're about, and what Eddie knows what he's about, and I think that's where you win. And it's like you just have to be real true to yourself, man, and whatever you're into, and you challenge yourself. And I think the other main point from a fitness standpoint is I've been competing for I started doing my first contest when I was 17, first powerlifting meet. Probably for like 10 or 15, probably like 15 years, I've trained for something constantly, which creates deadlines, times where I have to be on stage, and content around it. Because everybody wants a narrative. So right now, I'm training for a powerlifting meet. Then I'm training for a bodybuilding show. Then I was always so actively training for something that was going to make me better, that I had a deadline and a time where I had to stand on stage in my freaking underwear, or be ready for this day. And that's what created that discipline, and I think success for me. And I just consistently did it for a long time. So we got one more? Good. Guys drove in from Florida, Gainesville.
Hey, go Gators. Actually, we're from Lakeland, Florida, so below Gainesville, right next to Tampa for you guys that need to know. But first of all, I'd like to start off by saying I haven't heard Marie say that you guys have the best shit and the realest shit on the internet.
We got the best thing on the internet.
Do. Bear with me. My question, I don't know how to structure it. Me and my brother, when we were driving up here for 12 hours, we were trying to think of questions, but we didn't really want to get roasted by Mr. John Fosco.
That's the fun thing, though.
I always, in the podcast, Maurice and Corey seem to stay clear of this topic. John's pretty vocal about it. But all of us in here, I'm assuming, are going to deal with a significant other at one point, whether it's a female, male, whatever you're into nowadays. How do you take this information and bring it into a relationship when you're dealing with a female? No offense to any of you in here. They can be a little more sensitive when it comes to topics like these because they're so real and they're so powerful, and they hit home for me, because you can relate them in anything in life and take it and grow, whether it's business, relationships, or relationships with anybody, whether it's your boss, your significant other, or your brother, So how do you take the information that you guys give out and transfer it into a relationship without I almost went, me and my brother say we go Johnny Fosco on somebody. You know, you're like.
I hope that becomes a thing.
No, really, we do it.
Yes.
One day, my girlfriend was talking about quitting her current job, and she emailed somebody that had quit from that job a year before or something like that, and she's like, well, this is how they did it and that, and I said, who fucking cares? It doesn't matter how they quit. It matters how you quit. Long story short, that person quit over email and had been there forever, and I said, that's bullshit. You know, you walk up to that person, you look them in the eye, you say, thank you for the opportunity. I have a better opportunity elsewhere, or whatever it may be. But you guys know what I'm saying. How do you transfer that information without hurting someone's feelings and, you know, growing off of that?
It's
John,
hard.
you're good at
it's hard.
not hurting people's feelings.
No, I'm not.
don't.
But what I will tell you is this: is I'll always. I think, you know, if you talk about relationships, it's extremely important, like Maurice was talking about in business, to let somebody know who you are up front before the ball gets rolling. And for myself, you know, I don't talk about the women I've loved and the successful relationships that I've messed up for all kinds of different reasons. But what I'll tell you is this: if you tell them, listen, this is who I am. I am living, breathing, always motivated to create, and I'll never change this, because this is me. This is my DNA. And if somebody accepts you as that, that's a start. That's a start. I think we fail when we try to just say, oh, what does this person want? Okay, I'm going to fit into their little cabinet. But time always tells the truth or shows the face, right? And you can't mislead people. So if you feel the need to go John Fosco on someone, it's because you feel really strongly about it, and maybe they don't know you feel strongly about it. So I think just always being honest when this is tough. Being honest when it's going to hurt someone's feeling. The question is it better not to hurt their feelings, or is it better not to be honest? And we can debate, everyone can debate that. I personally think, and this is just my feeling, it's always better to be honest, because honest and the truth, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. It's going to come out anyways. So if it's going to hurt right now, I'm sorry, but here's what it is.
I think being look, like I mentioned, my wife's a teacher, so the business stuff is abstract to the way that she thinks. I didn't want another crazy business person, because then we'd never ever see each other probably. You know? But at the end of the day, I had to say, like, early on, this is what I want for us. This is what I aspire to be. This is not going to be an easy road. And I have, not most recently, but at times I had a reminder, like, this is what I signed us up for. You're at home helping take care of the business and the family, and I'm out here trying to do what I'm trying to do, and we have to work as a team. I don't need you to understand it all the time. I just need, so it's a two-way street, right? She has to force me to go on vacation, because I'm like a 4-day guy, but I need that time to recharge and be with my family and do those things. It's just what it is. But there's other times I have to say, hey, you need me to do this or that, but now's not the time, because I gotta handle this stuff, and I'll catch up with you like 3 days from now. You know what I'm saying? So I think that, to John's point, being honest and upfront and letting them know what really time it is. Like, if we want these things for our family, we want to do things that other people essentially can't do, like on a drop of a hat, and we want to live this lifestyle, or whatever your aspiration is, it comes to a little bit of a price. So I think that communication constantly is, because here's the thing, I can lean on Rachel and be like, this week was fucking tough. Like, and then she'll just kind of let me be and know, like, oh, Corey just needs some time. Like, I'll take the kids and do this thing, and maybe I just need to watch a game for an hour and then check out, which I don't do that I hardly do this stuff ever. You know what I'm saying? Because we're so busy, and when I'm not doing stuff with these guys, I'm at ball games, I'm trying to be dad. It's a busy life. But once again, I knew that when I got into it, she knew that, and we just have to keep that communication. So when you take it home and the significant other is on a whole different page, you got to find a way to pull them to that page gradually, in my opinion.
Yeah, a few things went off in my head. Part of me is that I used to be in that space of always thinking I knew what was best for somebody else. And then I found out I was running myself crazy trying to control somebody else. And I had to come to the point that I don't own my lady. You know, I don't own my kid. And the things that inspire me to go be an entrepreneur or to risk everything I have for something better are just things that's true to me. And so when I took all of those expectations off of her or what I felt that what was best for her and what she should be doing, it was like freedom, you know what I'm saying? And then there's a flip side to that coin that even though I wanted my lady to believe in me even more, when I first started talking to her and encouraging her, there was a period of time that I had to prove results. You know what I mean? You have to ask yourself like that. You're trying to influence somebody, but what are you really doing that makes them want to follow you? You feel where I'm coming from? So a woman naturally wants to follow the person who's successful. She's not a fool. A woman wants security, you know, or she wants some surety in her life. So I think the more surety and the more security that you provide, it validates what you're preaching. So I've gotten better not trying to overpower my girl or tell her what to do or give her direction. I've gotten better from just showing and proving that I say, yo, come with me. Or, you know, follow me down this road with this. But I'm telling you, people think when they get with people, like, you all don't own each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, even me today, I might be hurt, but, like, even if my woman cheated on me, all right, go, bye. I might be hurt for a couple seconds, but I don't own her. You know what I'm saying? Or if something bad happens, I don't own anybody. You know what I'm saying? And I built up this callous thing in my head to, like, something happens between us, we lose this tomorrow, all right? Something happens with my personal business, I might be hurt for a second, may process it, all right, I'll be cool. You know what I'm saying? Even you don't own nothing. I think that's where the humility comes from. Like, I've had everything, I had everything taken away from me. You know what I'm saying? Like, this shit can be gone tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Cool, who are you? You know what I'm saying? Can you get it back? So, like, I don't know, I function from a different place, but to get to that place where, like, you don't own nothing. Like, nothing makes you. Or, I don't know, like, I'm talking a little bit further down, like, from a different perspective, but, like, nobody owns anybody. And when you stop trying to own people or feel what they should do, and I think in context, we try to offer good advice for the podcast, and not to say what's best for you, but to talk from experience. But when you're dealing with people, you can't think like, I own you, and I know what's best for you, even if you don't grab them, but just to speak that way. You know what I'm saying? But you can let go of so much, like, all right, fuck it, you don't want to do it, cool. All right, you know, maybe you want to go watch Housewives. All right, cool. You know what I'm saying? I want to go make some money. Right?
He picked his favorite show. All right, so we got to wrap it up. We have to do it in the only way that we know how to. Johnny Fosco, Maurice Claret, yes. Can the podcast be stopped? The podcast can't